From Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, this is Tar Heel Illustrated publisher Andrew Jones coming to you along with staff writer Jacob Turner. And we're going to hit on a couple of points tonight. We're not going to do a long analysis of the Appalachian State game that's this Saturday. We're not going to go back to Wake Forest and uber analyze that thing to death. Tonight's topic, Jacob, very simple. Two things that stand out the most on the positive side, 3 games into the season, and on the negative side, 3 games into the season. Start with the positives. I'm going to go linebacker first.
Okay.
It's a position that has a long way to go, so don't get us wrong here. We're not saying that linebackers are strength. We're not saying that the linebackers are playing exceptionally well, because they're not. But if you go back 6 weeks ago, when fall camp started, think about which concerns you had about this team. Mac Brown's first thing came out of his mouth was linebacker. Most fans, linebacker. Media, hey, what's up with linebacker? The only 2 guys they had back that had any experience, Dominic Ross has been inconsistent, and he missed the first game, and then Jonathan Smith was suspended for the first 2 games. So you had 2 guys that either one had played 10 snaps, Jeremiah Gimmel, and then the other guy was a quarterback last year. I think Chaz Surratt has played really well, all things considered, and he's going to get better. He keeps getting better each week. He's got to learn the physicality a little bit more, learn to wrap guys up a little bit more. And Gimmel has been outstanding. He's played like 98% of the plays. He's making all the calls out there. Again, he's only played 3 games in his career, other than the 10 snaps he had coming into this season. So these guys are still wet behind the ears. They're going to get a lot better, but the progress they've made from August 2nd, when fall camp started, to now is significant.
Yeah, I think Gimmel and Surratt have really surprised us, because we talked about linebacker being a real concern for us going into the season, just because we weren't quite sure what to expect from Carolina at that position. You've got a guy in Gimmel, like you mentioned, who just hadn't played a lot. You got a guy who this time last year was playing quarterback. But they've come in. I think what I've been most impressed with by them is their sideline-to-sideline speed. They still got to get stronger. Mac Brown's mentioned that a few times. You've seen a couple plays. I think the one that stands out recently was the Jamie Newman touchdown at Wake Forest when he took Surratt's helmet off. Surratt just wasn't strong enough to make that tackle, but he will get stronger. And it's not. And trust me, we see Surratt walking around here all the time. He's a big kid, but he's only going to get bigger. I think him and Gimmel are only going to improve. And then you got Dominic Ross, Jonathan Smith behind them, guys that have played a lot of football here. So linebacker group right now, while it's not a strength, I think it's been a positive for North Carolina so far.
Sideline to sideline is a great example of what these guys can do, because you know what? You can't teach sideline to sideline.
No, you can't.
That's inherent. If you have that, that's great. They can teach physicality. They can get stronger. So these guys already have some of the basic intangibles that you want. Think back to great linebacker groups that UNC's had in the past. Go back a decade with Quan Sturtevant and Bruce Carter. What did they do? Sideline to sideline. They were also strong. By the way, Carter played quarterback in high school. So this group is going to get better. The other positive is Sam Howell. Everyone's talking about Sam Howell. Everyone's writing about Sam Howell, but you know what? It's an ongoing, amazing story. Get this stat. He's played 3 games in his college career, so he's had 3 fourth quarters. He's led them to 2 come from behind wins and almost a third. He's 17 for 23 for 289 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions in the fourth quarter, and he turned 19 yesterday.
You talked about it. Everybody's talking about Sam Howell, but there's a reason everybody's talking about Sam Howell. It's not because he's been playing bad. It's because he's really shocked a lot of people. We all knew he was good. We all knew Sam Howell was going to come in and do good things, but to be as good as he has been so far, barring the first half against Wake Forest, where not only Sam Howell wasn't great, the whole offense really whole team as a whole just wasn't good enough. But Sam Howell has come in. He's led fourth quarter comebacks. He's really shown that he is not only capable of playing at this level, but as he continues to get better, continues to get more minutes, continues to get more confidence under him, he's only going to continue to improve and go up. And one thing the players talked about today at the weekly press conference they have is they've talked about how he's become more of a vocal leader. I think that was the next step. And they've talked about it, how it's happened after this Wake Forest game. We all know how he came out and kind of took the blame after that loss in his post-game interview. But this week, he's come out more vocally. He's taken that next step, which is what we've talked about. If he can become more of a vocal leader on this team and keeps playing like we know he's capable of, I mean, the upside for Sam Howell is through the roof, and he's only going to continue to improve.
Yeah, it's not just that he's making more noise. It's because he's feeling more comfortable.
Exactly.
And that comfort has been born out of success. If you're not playing well and you're stinking up the joint, you're not going to talk a lot more when you're 18 years old. just turned 19 yesterday, by the way.
Crazy.
He was asked what his birthday present was, like birthday present.
He's talking to his mom.
His mom called, and then he's like, my mom calls me every day anyway. And that's kind of sad. I mean, it's been fascinating watching how he handles the media for a guy that hadn't had much experience at it. We can kind of see one of the reasons he performs well out here in the field, especially in pressure situations, because he's just so much more mature beyond his years. And one more example about him, going back to the Wake Forest game, he was pulled for 2 series late in the first half. Jace Bruder played, and I asked Sam today, how did you benefit from that? He said it gave him a chance to hit the reset button, to see the game from a different perspective, to kind of get a gauge of the speed, and guess what? He did a lot better in the second half.
Exactly.
Now the negatives. One of them is pretty obvious, the depth. This team doesn't have much depth, and we have a piece running Wednesday on our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com, that Jacob wrote. That's about the lack of depth in the secondary. It's hitting pretty much everywhere except running back, and tight ends getting stressed a little bit right now with Carl Tucker out. But everywhere else, they don't have great depth, and I think it's most obvious in the secondary.
We talked about it coming into the season. The depth was one of our big concerns. It's not that Carolina doesn't have bodies that can go in there and play. They just don't have guys who have played a lot of football.
Guys that are ready.
Exactly. They don't have guys that are ready. And I touched on it in my secondary piece that you'll see on Wednesday, like AJ mentioned. But secondary is always, not secondary, but depth is always a concern on any team, especially in the secondary when you look at, 4 true freshmen or the backups behind the 2 cornerbacks and the 2 safeties right now. That's a concern. But this team as a whole just doesn't have a lot of depth. They don't have guys that have proven that they're ready to play at this level yet. And as you get longer into the season, as you get into more of the thicker ACC play and stuff like that, injuries are going to happen. It's unavoidable. I know Carolina's had their fair share of injuries. Don't expect it to happen like that. Guys are going to get banged up. Guys are going to have to be relieved more during games. And Carolina's second, third group right now just isn't looking too great right now. Does that mean they can't continue to improve as they get more reps in practice and in games going into the season? Sure. But right now, I think depth is a concern for this team and something that they're going to have to continue to build going into the remainder of the season.
Every week, the day after each game, we run the snap counts from the game. And you'll see in the limited number of guys that are in the snap count, get snaps, that they don't, the depth isn't going to grow that much when the guys aren't playing. And it's not that the coaches don't want to. You've got to win football games.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what you've seen the first 3 weeks, maybe with the exception of 2 games on the schedule, I'm not going to mention them, the rest of the games are probably going to be that way.
Yeah.
So the opportunities that these guys are going to get that kind of experience are usually going to come through injuries, and that's what we've seen. Brian Anderson playing at center, Josh Azudu got 44 reps at offensive tackle Friday night, and Zach Gill got the start at defensive tackle because Jason Strobridge didn't play. And if we're going to go back to the positive for a very quick second here, the number one area that lacked depth entering fall camp was defensive line. I think they've done a better job at getting depth there than any other spot, because Gill, I think the light's gone on. Vahasek, the kid that transferred in from junior college, did a pretty solid job the other night. And Tamari Fox has been really good as a true freshman. He's going to get better. And Jaleel Taylor also has been able to give them some snaps. He's been able to spell Aaron Crawford. So they do have a little bit of depth there that's developing. It's an ongoing thing to be continued, but then other than running back and tight end, it's just not really there. So that's going to be an issue moving forward. They cannot afford any more injuries.
Nope.
In the secondary right now, at least when Renee went out, they had Greg Ross to step in, who was one of their most experienced players back there. Now they don't have anybody. It's a big issue. It's a big concern. Another concern is offensive line. Again, they don't have much depth there. The goal is to have 8 guys that you are confident going into a game that you can play and will play given the number of snaps an offense gets. They kept saying we were not at 8. We kept asking throughout fall camp. 6 or 7 was the number we were given going into South Carolina. Well, you know what? They're down 2 guys. Jordan Tucker's questionable for this week. Nick Polino's out. So the 6th and 7th guys are Brian Anderson and Josh Azudu. Billy Ross, I guess, would be the 8th guy. He's gotten a few snaps in each game, but the offensive line has not been consistent. That's something that they absolutely are pushing toward. And one of the things Phil Longo said the other day that they need from the offensive line is more physicality. They need to be more physical.
Yeah, they do. And losing Nick Polino was a huge loss. I mean, this offensive line only had 2 seniors in Heck and Polino going into the season. So you lose a guy like that who was just moved over there to center. And when you got your guard moving over there to center, kind of shows you that maybe you don't trust the guy that is playing at center right now in Brian Anderson. Now, he hasn't played a lot of football here, so that kind of goes back to the depth thing we've been talking about. But at the O-line, I think we saw a little bit of what we can expect maybe from them going forward against Wake Forest. I thought they played pretty well against South Carolina, Miami, barring a few plays. But Wake Forest, I think it really stood out that didn't do a great job run blocking, especially early on. Didn't do a great job pass blocking, barring that fourth quarter, really. So I think we started to see some of this weaknesses of the offensive line kind of come out last Friday night. But offensive line-wise, you just got a lot of young guys up there. And that I think that's the biggest thing with them. You don't have a lot of guys that play a lot of football, that have a lot of experience. So they're going to be a work in progress as well. Losing Nick Polino, like I mentioned, was huge. You've only got one senior down there now, so there's not a ton of leadership down there. Charlie Heck said he's a quiet guy in the first place, so vocal leadership in that group right now is a problem too, I think. But I think when you really break it down and look at, okay, maybe why is this O-line a work in progress? Just a lot of youth down there.
Yeah, a lot of youth.
Exactly.
They've allowed 13 sacks and 7 quarterback hurries. Pass protection must get better. Although there are times when it's been good. Like when Sam converted the 4th and 17 against Miami, he had great protection. The other night he converted a 3rd and 20 for a 32-yard play. He had really good protection. The run thing too is a little bit of a concern. They've got really good running backs and they've been explosive at times. They have 16 runs of 10 or more yards, but they have 48 runs of 2 yards or less, and that doesn't include the sacks or the team rushes. And there are 12 that have been minus yardage, and one of them was a reverse to Daz Newsome. So that's 11, conventional run plays, dives, counters, whatever the stuff is that they run, that did not even get anything at all. They had negative yardage. Exactly. So they do need to get more consistent. And I think as they get more consistent, you'll see this air raid offense open up. You'll see more of the air raid offense. You'll see Sam throw more consistently and throw better. And of course, you'll see Michael Carter and Javonte Williams get into the second level and third level of the defense, because when they do, they can make a lot of things happen. And that's when the defense is good enough, giving up 23, 24 points a game. Even though they're giving up about 400 yards a game, that'll be good enough if the offense is a notch better. And that solely, right now, I think depends on the offensive line being better and being more consistent.
I've said it a lot. You're only as good as your offensive line at any level of football on the offensive side of the ball. So the offensive lines, they've got to do a little bit better job. We all know that. I mean, it's not hard to tell from watching this team. But with the youth they have, I think they'll continue to make steps and get better. But I mean, you have some good teams coming up soon. You got App State, you got Clemson, you got trip to Georgia Tech. I mean, there's a lot. It doesn't get any easier for North Carolina. So the learning curve might be a little steep. But I think this O-line, maybe in the next few years, you'll see the best out of them. I think this year is going to be a little up and down for them. But we've seen some good things against South Carolina. We've seen some good things against Miami. We saw a decent fourth quarter performance in the fourth quarter against Wake Forest. But right now, it's definitely a work in progress.
If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and click like this, subscribe to our channel so you can get the notifications when all of our videos come up. We got 7 player videos from today coming to you. And also, we want to know what you think.
Yeah.
Go ahead and post in the comment section. What are 2 things that stand out to you on the positive and 2 things that stand out to you on the negative side? If you're watching us on TarHeelIllustrated.com, our site, and you're not there, go there, because we have an amazing special going on right now. You can check stuff out for free for a couple more weeks before we won't have that special going anymore. And by the way, if you do sign up, you get 6 free months to the site.
Great deal.
But let us know on our site what your 2 positives so far and your 2 negatives so far, 3 games into the season. For Jacob Turner, this is Andrew Jones. You're watching us on Tar Heel Illustrated on YouTube and TarHeelIllustrated.com.